The screen is black. It's the sound of alarms, screaming, crashing metal, a sharp, rising tone of danger. Then silence. Cut to blazing sunlight, an erect shuttle half buried in golden sand. The air shimmers with heat. The sun above was a monster. It didn't shine. It burned. It pressed down like a giant furnace, turning the broken pieces of the alien shuttle into searing metal. The sand around the wreck shimmered and twisted with waves of dry, invisible fire. Inside the cracked ship, the crew tried to move, but everything hurt. Their eyes stung. Their lungs pulled in air that felt like sandpaper. Oxygen levels were dropping fast. The commander, three-armed Altari named Vesk, slammed one of his hands on a broken console. Environmental seal is gone. Emergency oxygen depleted in 17 minutes. Across the ruined deck, the Metajara, a soft-skinned Ulinari, was trying to keep another crew member from passing out, but her own limbs were trembling. Her blue skin was already turning pale. Temperature is climbing past our limit. We're losing hydration through skin. This planet is death. The crew of the diplomatic shuttle Spirelight had crashed on an unmarked Class 5 desert world. No water, no surface plant life, no breathable atmosphere, and worst of all, no signal could escape the sky. Some kind of interference blocked all outbound transmissions. They were stranded. Then something strange happened. Everyone else was panicking, screaming, running from console to console, checking broken scanners, broken transmitters, broken hopes. But one being moved slowly, calmly. Human, suspense build, 032 4 o'clock. Lieutenant Mason Gray stood at the edge of the broken ramp. He had a small pack on his back and wore tinted goggles to block the sun. His skin, already rough and sun-worn from a lifetime of Earth's deserts, seemed completely unbothered. He looked out at the dunes. Just sand, endless sand. The color of rust and death. It shimmered like waves of smoke above it. Behind him, Commander Vesk shouted again, "Human, Mason. We need internal systems restored. Help us repair the hydrocondenser." Mason didn't answer. He stepped off the ramp, onto the sand dot, and began walking away. The aliens watched in disbelief. "Where's he going? We need help here. He's leaving us." But Mason didn't go far. He stopped about 30 meters from the ship, found a small dip in the land. He dropped his pack, pulled out a strange device, metal rods, cloth, wires. It looked ancient, primitive, and then started digging. 4 o'clock to 6:30, deepening the mystery and suspense back on the ship. Panic turned into arguments. Jara was trying to stabilize a crew member who had gone into heat shock. Vesk tried again to contact the orbital station, but the comms were dead. Signal bounces being absorbed by something in the atmosphere. This planet isn't natural. He muttered, then another scream. One of the crew had touched a hot piece of hull and burned his hand. The ship was quickly becoming uninhabitable. Commander Vesk looked out the broken viewport and saw Mason, still digging, still working with quiet. Purpose, that human? What is he doing? Hunting? Praying? Jara looked too. He's not panicking like we are. Why not? Scene shift Mason's perspective. Mason wiped sweat from his brow, but it didn't bother him much. He'd been in places like this before. Earth had deserts too, places where water was a myth. But there was always one truth. There's water. In the air, you just have to know how to pull it out. He finished shaping the shallow pit and began assembling a simple moisture trap, a clear sheet over the hole, stone in the center and a cup below. The heat would do the work. Vapor from the air would condense on the plastic and drip into the cup. It wouldn't be fast, but it would be something, and something was better than panic. 6:30 to 8 o'clock, human versus alien reaction back at the ship. 2 more crew members had collapsed. One was unconscious. The heat was cooking them from the inside. Their bodies, evolved in cooler, humid homeworlds, couldn't take this dryness. Inside the cockpit, the temperature hit 51 degrees Celsius. VSK cursed. Then turned and barked, "Bring that human back! Is abandoning us?" But when they looked again, Mason wasn't walking away anymore. He was walking back, carrying something, a small metal canister in one hand. In the other, his portable air. Recycler-modified. He stepped into the ship slowly, opened the lid of the canister, and let everyone see it. Water, clear, real. Water, condensed from the air. Only a few ounces, Mason said quietly. But enough for now. Can show you how to make more. The crew stared. JAHRA reached out, dipped a finger, tasted it. Her eyes widened. That's impossible, she whispered. There's no moisture in the air. Mason gave a dry smile. There's always some. You just don't know how to look. Scene close to 8 o'clock to 9:30. Vesk finally sat down, exhausted, confused. Your people. You've done this before? Mason nodded. Earth's deserts are old. The Sahara? The Atacama? Places where rain doesn't fall for 100 years, but people still live there. Still survived. He knelt beside the collapsed crew. Build more traps. You just have to stay alive long enough for them to work. The silence in the ship was heavy. The panic had burned out. Now there was only heat, and the quiet sound of one human making water out of thin air. While the alien crew collapses under a hostile sun, one human doesn't just survive, he adapts. In a place where machines fail and biology breaks, human instinct rises. The desert. Doesn't care who you are, but humans know how to make it care. This was only the first trial. The Scorchlands were far from done with them, and neither was Mason Gray. The sun hasn't moved. Time has slowed. Inside the shuttle, the first scream cuts through the air. One of the aliens is convulsing, skin cracking, fluids leaking out. He gasps. It's inside me. The air was turning deadly inside the broken shuttle. The temperature was now over 54 degrees Celsius. The ship's emergency systems had long since failed. Metal beams radiated heat. Surfaces burned skin on contact. The walls, once cold and silver, now glowed faintly like coals, and then it began. First Thren. The small Solari navigator collapsed without warning. His skin was flaking. His eyes were dry and wide. He gasped for breath, his body twitching violently. JAHRA, the medic, rushed to his side, but she was swaying too. His internal organs are shutting down. He's dehydrating from the inside. I gave him water, Vesk snapped. Why is he still dying? Jara touched his wrist, looked up with dread. Species loses moisture through the lungs. The dry air is pulling it out with every breath. Outside the wreck, the humans stood in silence, adjusting another makeshift water trap, while the aliens inside fought to stay alive. 0:30 to 3 o'clock, fear spreads through the crew. Thren wasn't the only one. 10 minutes later, second crew member, Kurotha, comes technician collapsed. His tongue was swollen, his veins stood out under his gray skin. He couldn't even speak. The crew was falling apart, their alien bodies, designed for stable, humid atmospheres, couldn't take the harsh, dry, airless world. Their fluids were evaporating. Organs were shrinking. They weren't just thirsty, they were breaking. And in the middle of it all, Mason Gray stayed quiet, focused. He had lined up 5 moisture traps in a crescent shape around a shallow dip in the sand.
Oh, yeah.
One of them was already collecting water. Slow, but steady. It's not fast, he said calmly, to no one in particular, but it's real. Inside the shuttle, Vesk was fuming. We need more than drops. We are dying. What kind of barbaric method is this? Jara tried to speak, but her mouth was too dry. Mason walked back inside, sweat dripping, but eyes sharp. He knelt beside Thren and checked his pulse. You have to stop breathing so hard. You're wasting your water. We can't. We're not built for this. Then learn fast. 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, Mason takes over. Mason stood tall and looked around. This isn't your ship anymore. It's a survival zone. You listen to me now, or none of you make it. The crew stared at him. Even Vesk was quiet. First rules, stay in the shadow. No more running around. Second, stop breathing like you're panicking. Inhale slow. Hold it, then exhale. Less moisture loss. He pulled a folded piece of silver fabric from his pack and began setting up a thermal barrier inside the shuttle, pinning it over the windows. This'll cut down solar exposure by 30%. Need to last until night. That's when we can make our move. What move? Besk asked. I'll show you, but right now. You don't move unless I say. No one argued. 5 o'clock to 7:30, aliens begin to understand. The crew sat in the dim light. Covered in thermal blankets Mason handed out from his survival kit, they watched him boil water using a simple solar still he'd built from ship debris. The aliens were stunned. You've done this before? Jara whispered. Mason nodded. Afghanistan, Atacama, Arizona. I know heat. I know what it does to you, and I know how to live through it. Jara wiped a drop of condensation from a pipe he'd cooled with shaded airflow. Why does your kind even know how to live in places like this? Mason looked at her. 'Cause Earth tried to kill us long before space ever did. For the first time since the crash, they believed him. 7:30 to 9 o'clock, desperation breaks a rule despite everything. Fear still lingered. Of the crew, Mina, a young Ralvec engineer, snuck outside while Mason was working. She believed there had to be something better than dripping water into cups. She thought she saw a shape in the distance. Glint. She ran, but she didn't get far. Minutes later, Mason found her collapsed in the sand, her body convulsing. Her breathing was fast. Her skin was bubbling, literally boiling from internal heat. He hoisted her over his shoulders and brought her back without a word. Vesk shouted, "Shh. She's just a child." "She's dead weight if she doesn't listen," Mason snapped. "This desert doesn't care about age or rank, only rules." She broke one. He laid her down, poured 2 drops of water into her mouth. She coughed. Barely alive. 9 o'clock too. 10 o'clock, final words of the chapter. As night finally began to fall, the temperature dropped just slightly. Shadows grew longer. The air thinned further, but the deadly sun was fading. The crew was silent. Mason stood at the edge of the dunes again. Watching the sky, he didn't say anything for a while. Then finally, "Tomorrow, we walk. But tonight, you live because I planned for this. Your people didn't. This world is not yours, not mine either. But I know its tricks. I've seen them before." He turned back toward the flickering light of the broken shuttle. "Sleep. Hydrate. You'll need strength. The Scorchlands are just getting started." Fade to black. The alien stares at the human's hands. Dripping water. Real, pure water. His voice shakes. "That's impossible." The human just smiles. "You're still thinking like someone who's never been desperate." The third day began without warning. No dawn, just fire. The twin suns of the unnamed desert planet rose fast and angry, flooding the sky with molten color. Heat shimmered before light even fully formed. The aliens woke coughing, their mouths dry, eyes crusted, bodies heavier. 3 had passed out during the night. 2 didn't wake at all. The shuttle smelled like rust and burned plastic. The air. Inside, even worse, like a slow oven with no timer, but outside. Something strange was happening. Mason Gray, the human, was humming. 0:32, 3 o'clock, calm. Amid collapse, Jara stepped out of the shuttle slowly, her limbs moving like they were. Filled with stones, she had to hold on to the wall for balance. What she saw froze her in place. Mason sat cross-legged, near a hole he had dug the day before. Above the hole, stretched over a simple frame of broken rods and clear plastic, was a dome. And beneath it, inside a small metal bowl, ... Water. Real water. A few ounces, clear as ice, reflecting the double sun like a jewel. Mason reached in with gloved fingers and let a drop fall onto his tongue. Jara's voice cracked. "Where did you get that?" Didn't turn to her, just pointed up. "Same place we get air. It's around us. Just don't see it." She dropped to her knees beside him, her legs too weak to stand. "Show me how." 3 o'clock to 5:30, a lesson in desperation. Mason handed her a second frame. Crude, but solid. A salvaged fusion panel warped into a base. Some cable lines. Clear. Ship canopy piece for the top. Dig 1/2 meter down. Shade it. Set the funnel like this. But there's no humidity here. You don't need a lot, just enough. He pointed at the sky. Even in Earth's Atacama desert, there's 0.02% moisture in the air. Not much, but I've lived off worse. Jera looked down at her trembling hands. We evolve on high humidity planets. Never needed to extract air water. Mason nodded. That's why your tech's failing. It assumes comfort. Assume death. But how did your people survive places like this? Because Earth didn't give us a choice. 5:30 to 7:30, the skeptic Snaps Vesk stumbled out of the shuttle next. His uniform soaked with dried sweat. He looked worse than anyone. His eyes sunken, lips cracked. But he still tried to sound like a commander. This primitive method. It's barely sustaining one. We need a real solution. A rescue beacon. Something useful. Mason stood up slowly, walked to Vesk, and held the bowl of water right under his nose. You want useful? Drink this. Vesk stared at the water. Pride wouldn't let him accept it at first. But his body betrayed him. He snatched the bowl and drank fast, too fast, nearly choking. Mason turned away. Your command means nothing here anymore. 7:30 to 9:30, the crew tries to learn over the next hour. Mason taught whoever could stand how to build the traps. For aliens tried. 2. Collapsed mid-dash build. 1 passed out from bending over only. Jera finished hers. Her hands bled from rough tools, but she did it. Mason nodded once. That was enough inside the shuttle. Mason reconfigured a cracked coolant pipe to flow into the traps at night to amplifying moisture pull. It was primitive, messy, not elegant. But it would work. Outside, the traps began to collect again. Drip. Drip, drip. Each drop meant another hour of life. 9:30 to 11 o'clock, a quiet moment, a deadly truth later that evening. Mason sat under a makeshift tarp. Jahra sat beside him, cradling the small bowl in her hands. I used to believe my species was advanced, she said. We had faster-than-light travel, biological scanners, nanite medicine. You thought that meant you were better? She didn't respond. Mason leaned back, watching the twin suns. Lower technology doesn't mean anything if you forget the basics. Fire, water, shelter, breathing. Why does your kind always seem ready for everything? He looked at her for a long time. 'Cause Earth's been trying to kill us for thousands of years. We just got good at saying no. 11 o'clock to 12:30. A warning from the sand that night something strange happened. One of the traps stopped collecting, then another. Mason frowned, checked them. No cracks, no leaks. But then he noticed tiny crystals forming under the surface. Salt. He scooped a small pile from the sand, near the trap's base, and tasted it. Bitter. Damn, there's salt in the sublayer. It's leaching. Into the water. He turned to Jara. We need to move. The land's changing under us. Changing how? The desert's not stable. Something below is pulling minerals up. Its ground might become toxic in hours. Jara looked around at the only shelter they had. So we die here? Or we die walking? Mason stood and grabbed his pack. We don't die. Not yet. 12:30 to 14 o'clock. The path ahead, Mason drew a rough map in the sand. We head west. At dawn, just over that ridge, the air's denser. Could mean a basin, or maybe vegetation, or maybe nothing. I'll take the gamble. Vesk stepped forward, wobbling. You expect us to follow you again? Mason didn't even look. At him, you can stay here and die slow. Or follow me and maybe die fast. Your call? Silence. Then Jara stood. I'll follow. Others nodded, weak but willing. Vesk said nothing. But he picked up a tarp. That was enough. 14 o'clock to end, final moments and foreshadowing that night. Mason set the last of the traps. He sat beside one and waited. Drip, drip, a shadow passed over him. He looked up, just in time to see something move beneath the sand in the distance. Not a creature. A shape. Massive. Silent. As if the land itself had a heartbeat. He narrowed his eyes. This place isn't just dry. It's alive. Fade to black. The sky darkens. Not with clouds, but with fire. Winds begin to scream. The sand lifts like smoke. Lightning flashes across a cloudless sky. The alien medic cries out, "That's not weather. That's a weapon." Mason just mutters, "No. It's a storm, and it's going to try to kill us." The heat came early, and with it, the wind. At first it was just a breeze. But then the sound changed from a whisper to a growl. The sand started to move, rising and spinning in tight little circles around their feet. Then the sky turned orange. The twin suns were still above, but their light grew hazy. A thick reddish blur spread from the horizon, blotting out the edges. Of the world, the alien crew stared. Commander Vesk stepped forward, his voice trembling. "Is that natural?" Mason didn't answer at first. He was already moving, fast, pulling broken hull plates toward the shuttle's side. JAHRA ran up. Beside him. "What is it?" "A heat storm," Mason said. Massive temperature drop mixing with upper air currents. Sand, heat, static electricity. We're about to be buried and cooked. How long do we have? He looked at the sky. Then, at the sand rising. 30 minutes, maybe less. 0:30 to 3 o'clock, alien panic erupts. The wind hit first dry. And sharp, like knives, it clawed at exposed skin, filled eyes with grit, and made it almost impossible to breathe. Some of the alien crew scattered, covering their faces, gasping. One screamed, "The air's gone hot. It's burning my throat." Another tried to run for higher ground, but immediately fell as the wind knocked them over. Inside the broken shuttle, the metal began to creak. Mason dragged another piece of hull across the sand and slammed it into place beside the others. "We're building a dome," he snapped. Vesk shouted. "We need to get off the ground. Climb higher." "No," Mason said, voice sharp. "Up there the winds will shred you. Down here, I can build something. That holds. Out of junk. That's all we've got." 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. The dome plan, Mason pointed. "You get every blanket, tarp, and insulation mat. You'll pull all the broken support beams from the engine room. We need structure and cover." Jera didn't question it. She grabbed a crowbar and started prying panels from the wall. Others followed. Mason worked like he was possessed. He slammed beams into the sand in a wide half circle, used bent pipes as anchors, tied them together with stripped cables from the shuttle's interior. Then he covered the frame with metallic heat shielding layered like scales and finally threw all the thermal blankets over the top. Inside, it was dark, but still be naturally. Climbed in, coughing. "How long will it hold?" "Long enough," Mason said. "If we don't panic, 6 o'clock to 8:30, the storm hits hard." The first wave hit like a wall. The dome shook, metal groaned, sand hissed, and screamed across the outside like boiling water poured over glass. Inside, the crew was silent, breathing, listening. One of them whimpered. "It's tearing the world apart." Lightning cracked inside the storm, not from clouds, but from the sheer friction of sand and wind rubbing together. The static was deafening. Then, the top of the dome buckled slightly. JSR gasped. Mason moved instantly, propping the frame with a loose beam. "Hold it steady. No sudden moves. If it collapses, then we suffocate. Or get buried, or both." 8:30 to 11 o'clock. Confession in the dark inside the shelter. Time slowed. Every second felt like an hour. JAHRA leaned close to Mason. "Why are you doing this? You don't even like us." Mason didn't answer right away. The wind howled louder then. "It's not about liking. It's about surviving." "You think that means machines and rules? Think it means knowing when to shut up and dig?" Jera gave a weak smile. "We weren't trained for this. That's the problem. You were trained for comfort. I was trained for failure. You expected this? Not this planet. But something always goes wrong." He looked at her. "Out here, the universe doesn't care if you're diplomatic or advanced. Just wants to see what breaks first." 11 o'clock to 13:30. Outside collapse. Inside, survival outside. The storm slammed a fallen engine part into the top of the dome. The crew jumped. A panel tore. Light burst through the opening and with it, a wave of stinging sand. Mason lunged, tied a patch of fabric over it, and reinforced it with a tool bag. "One patch left," he muttered. "After this, we just pray." The rest of the crew stayed. Low, shaking, some cried. Some whispered to themselves. Vesk spoke from a corner. "Your people are terrifying." Mason raised an eyebrow. "Why? You walk into fire like it's nothing. You build shelters from garbage. You stare at storms. Like they owe you money." Mason shrugged. "It's either that or die." 13:30 to 15 o'clock, the storm fades. But not quietly hours passed. The wind began to slow bit. With it came deep, low rumbles, not thunder. Beneath them. Mason pressed his hand to the ground. "Something's moving down there." The sand trembled slightly. Distant groan echoed under the dunes. "What is it?" Jara whispered. "Don't know," Mason said. But it didn't like the storm either. Then silence. Total, perfect silence. The crew held their breath. Then, the air pressure shifted. The dome lifted slightly, not from outside force, but from below. Mason's eyes narrowed. Everyone out now. 15 o'clock to end aftermath, an ominous discovery. The storm had passed. The sky was still orange, but clear. The wind had dropped to a gentle breeze, but the sand around the dome was different. Dented, cracked, split. Mason walked forward, crouched, and ran his hand over the dune. Then he spotted something buried in the sand metal, etched with strange symbols not theirs. Alien. Old. Too old. He brushed more sand. Away in the ground, hissed like steam. "This planet wasn't empty," Mason muttered. "It's hiding something." Jara stepped beside him. "What is it?" "A door," Mason said, and it just opened. It faded to black. Sand flies as fists swing. A metal tool crashes against the wall. Two aliens fight. Screams fill the air. One shouts, "He's hiding water." Mason enters the scene, voice low and sharp. "You want to die fighting over drops, or live walking toward gallons?" Silence. One alien points a shaking finger. "We don't trust you anymore, human." The desert wasn't killing them fast enough now. They were doing it to themselves. The storm had passed. The sun rose again, burning the sand clean. But nothing else had changed. The moisture traps were working but too slowly, and the strange metal door Mason uncovered the day before hadn't. Opened further, supplies were low. Tempers lower. Mason knew the signs. He saw it in the eyes, tight movements, whispered conversations. Weapons slowly not being put back down. They weren't thinking like a crew anymore. They were thinking like survivors. And survivors don't always share. 0:30 to 3. A clock to suspicion grows by midday. The first accusation came. "Why does he get more water?" said Goran, a thick-skinned Wykarn. His wide shoulders filled the narrow dome. "'Cause I'm the one collecting it," Mason replied without looking up. "You think you're in charge?" Goran stepped closer. Mason stood, slow and calm. "No, but I'm the only reason you're alive." Jara stepped between them quickly. "Stop it. We're already dying. Don't help the desert kill us." But Mason saw the flicker of something in Goran's eyes. Fear. Turning into anger, it had begun. 3 o'clock to 5:30. Hidden resources, real or not, that night. Someone raided the traps. 2 were knocked over. The water was gone. No footprints. "No signs." John awoke Mason. "We have a thief." He nodded, already awake, already dressed. "I know." He walked into the dome. Everyone up now. They stirred, grumbling, weak. 2 traps were emptied. Someone drank what wasn't theirs. "If that person doesn't speak up, I start cutting people off. You think I need you? You think I can't survive alone?" Silence. "Was sharp then," Vesk said quietly. "Perhaps you already have water hidden." The crew froze. Mason didn't blink. "Say that again?" "You knew we'd crash? You came prepared. Maybe you have more, and you're keeping it." 5:30 to 8 o'clock, the Mutiny sparks. Goran stood. He walks out alone, makes traps alone, drinks first. Always first. We're starving while he thrives. Jara spoke fast. He saved us. He taught us how to survive. No, Goron growled. He taught us to depend. Now we follow him like pets. Mason raised his hand slowly. You want the water? Take it. But after that, you're on your own. He dropped his pack onto the sand, backed away. Goron lunged forward, tearing it open, expecting bottles, hidden reserves. Instead, just tools, a knife, a cracked solar cell. A coil of wire, no water, nothing, just survival gear. The silence returned. Then Goron snapped. Liar, he lunged. 8 o'clock to 10:30 fight in the dome. The dome exploded into chaos. Gora Ann tackled Mason. Sand flew. The others yelled. Mason rolled, deflected a punch, and used Goron's momentum to slam him into the dome wall. I told you not to do this. Another alien grabbed a tool, swung it at Mason's head. He ducked, kicked low. Stop it! Jara screamed. This isn't survival, it's madness. Vesk drew his sidearm, empty, broken, but still intimidating. Mason stood up slowly, breathing hard. You're not dying because of the desert, he said. You're dying because you stopped thinking. We're desperate, Goron hissed from the ground. So am I, Mason growled. But I didn't snap. I adapted. Right. 10:30 to 13 o'clock, aftermath and regret hours passed. The crew sat, silent, bruised. One alien had a broken arm. Mason had a cut across his cheek, but no one spoke until Jara. This can't happen again. Mason was crouched, fixing a damaged trap. Won't? I'm moving camp. What? Lone? You all chose chaos. I'll choose distance. Vesk looked up. That's a death sentence. No, Mason said. It's a lesson. He packed his tools. If you want to follow, you follow my rules. No theft, no lies, no mutiny. Or next time I don't come back. He walked into the dunes alone. 13 o'clock to 15:30, a glimpse of the old world. Mason didn't go far. Half a kilometer from camp. He found a rocky outcrop and set up his traps again. The wind had changed. He noticed faint traces of green at the edge, of a basin, dusty but real. A single plant root poking from a crack in the rock. Vegetation, he whispered. There's water nearby. Then he heard something. Not wind, not sand. A voice, whispering behind the rocks, etched deep into a wall, was another metal platinant, curved, with a single glyph pulsing faintly, like it had been waiting. 15:30 to end, the message begins. Stepped closer. The plate shimmered. A symbol appeared in the sand beneath his boots, geometric, sharp, not natural. Then a tone, low, pulsing, and a second whisper, a different language, not alien, not human. Older, Jahra, single quotes as voice rang out behind him. We followed you. Did you bring water? Did you bring water? No, then get ready to earn it. He pointed at the glyph. Because I think this dessert isn't just trying to kill us, it's trying to talk. Fade to black. The sand trembles. Stone cracks open. Lights flicker in the dunes. Something breathes below. This was never just a planet, Mason whispers. A sudden hiss. A scream. Flash of shadow. Get back. It's still alive. Then silence. Something ancient just noticed them. The ground wasn't just sand anymore. It pulsed. After the mutiny, the crew followed Mason because they had no other choice. His moisture traps were the only thing keeping them alive. But now, they followed. For another reason, curiosity and fear. The strange glyph Mason discovered was unlike anything in the galactic database. It shimmered with heat and whispered in vibrations none of them could translate. That meant one thing. It was older than everyone. Mason stood at the edge of the rock basin where the second panel had appeared. He'd cleared more sand. Now, they stared at a long, buried surface, like a hole or a wall, letched with thousands of symbols, and just beneath it, a hatch. 0:45 to 3 o'clock. The hatch that shouldn't open. Jara crouched beside the buried panel. This isn't ours. It's not even a known language family. Mason didn't look away. It's a warning. What do you know? Because it's repeating, flashing faster, like it knows we're here.
Oh.
He ran his fingers along the groove in the hatch. It was warm. Then a click. The plate slid back, slow and silent. A dark shaft yawned open, leading downward into pitch black, and from it came wind, cool, dry, and laced with something metallic. No way we're going in there, Goron muttered. Stay up here then, Mason said, grabbing a lamp. Die slow. He dropped into the dark. 3 o'clock to 5:30, descent into silence. The shaft was narrow but clean. Too clean, no debris, no dust. The metal walls pulsed with faint light following Mason's movement. The crew followed, one by one. 60 feet down, the tunnel opened into a massive circular chamber part temple. Machine pillars rose into the darkness. Floating rings rotated in midair, silently turning around a black core of unknown material, and carved into the floor, a map, but not of this planet. Star chart, Jera whispered. You know, Mason said. Migration pattern, he pointed. Didn't live here. They crashed here, same as us. 5:30 to 8 o'clock. Something still works, Low hum began to rise from the floor. The center core brightened, suddenly projected. From the Iran image formed, not a hologram. A memory figures appeared tall, thin, faceless, speaking in a rapid language. They gestured to planets, then to themselves, then to something vast, black, and spreading. Then dash explosions. One by one, the stars on the map went dark. A war, Jara guessed, or an infection. Mason replied. The vision ended. The chamber dimmed. A new symbol lit up on the far wall, an outline of a humanoid, with a red X over its heart. 8 o'clock to 10:30, something in the dark. Suddenly dash static. The cruise comes buzzed. Lights flickered. Then a sound. Soft. Slithering. Wet Gora Ann turned. What was that? No answer. Mason raised his light and froze. A smear on the far wall. Black, fresh. Not paint, not oil. Blood. Shadows moved behind one of the pillars. Vesk raised his weapon, still empty. Still useless, but his hands shook. J.H. whispered. There's something else down here. Something that never left, Mason said. He stepped closer. His boot crunched on something bone-dallion, hollow. Cleaned as eaten, 10:30 to 13 o'clock. They're not alone. The tunnels beyond the chamber were tighter, colder. Etched walls showed. Scenes, creatures splitting open, vomiting light, then vanishing. Others devoured by black mist, and always at the center. A figure watching, tall, human-shaped, but wrong too. Many limbs, too many eyes. Mason paused at a junction. The air grew heavier. You feel that? They all nodded, then they heard it breathing, not theirs. Something slow, deep, ragged, and close. We're not alone, Vesk muttered. We never were, Mason said. Shh, this place is occupied. A shape flickered across the end of the hall, tall, silent, watching. 13 o'clock to 15:30, rushing the exit. Suddenly lights burst to life overhead. Motion sensors, alarms. No, a countdown. Strange glyphs began to pulse, faster and faster. We triggered. Something, Jera gasped. Or woke something, Mason growled. Now. They sprinted back toward the shaft. Behind them, something moved. Heavy footsteps. Fast. Wrong, Jahra stumbled. Mason grabbed her, pulled her up the shaft. The last to climb was Gora Ann. He looked down and saw. Eyes in the dark, so many eyes. The hatch slammed shut behind them, silence except for the final whisper through the metal. U.R. Compatible. 1532 end. Surface panic back in the sun. They collapsed in the sand. The dunes were quiet again. Too quiet. Vesk gasped for air. What was that? Mason didn't answer. He stared at the hatch, then the map in his hand. That wasn't a ruin, he said. It was a coffin. Then what do we wake up? Jara whispered. He looked at the horizon, then at the two suns above. Something that never died. And now it knows we're here. Fade to black. A crew member screams as the sand swallows him whole. The others run, Mason yells. It's tracking movement. The sand is alive. No, it's controlled. A voice speaks not through air, but from inside their heads. Trial confirmed. Compatibility rising. They thought they'd escaped what was buried, but the desert was only just waking up. Episode summary, minus 2,000 words. Structured, the crew is back on the surface, shaken, thirsty, and divided. But something has changed. The sand moves when no one touches it. Heat signatures vanish and reappear. They hear faint voices inside their minds. Mason realizes the underground complex wasn't just ancient. It was part of a planet-wide system. Testing ground. Planet is not natural. It's artificial. Built by an extinct civilization to test survivors for something unknown. One crew member disappears. They find his footprints. ... Ending mid-stride. No body. Just disturbed sand. The planet is watching. Mason proposes a theory. The crew is inside a massive intelligence, a machine or organism that evaluates life forms under stress. It's not just observing, it's adapting by night, the stars above. Shifts subtly by day, the dunes realign. And beneath them all, the hum returns. The alien crew fractures again. Goron tries to flee solo, but is pulled under. No screams. Just silence. JAHRA sees strange lights inside her tent, symbols in the air, forming around her. Mason finally confesses. He's seen this before, not on Earth, but an old Terran black site. Data classified anomalies humanity never solved. This desert is one of them. A test. And it's not over. Mason kneels alone, his oxygen failing. The planet speaks again. One species passes, others fail. A beam of light envelops him. The alien crew screams as the sand lifts them into the air. Judgment begins.
Damn.
Then the desert shifts shape into a maze of towers, wind, and death. Only one species will be chosen. Only one will walk away. Episode summary, minus 2,000 words structured. Crew awakens in a different place. Not where they camped, not where they slept. The landscape has changed. Pillars rise from the sand, metallic humming. An artificial sun hangs in the sky. The air is breathable, but just barely. Their equipment no longer works. Their comms are jammed. The voice returns. Mechanical, ancient, translated through the implants in their minds. Comparative trial. Cognitive, tactical, moral. They're inside a simulation built by the planet's core intelligence. Mason is isolated from the others, each crew member placed in separate regions of this vast maze. But the maze adjusts differently to each of them. The aliens face their fears, some fail instantly. Others disappear. Mason is presented with a choice. Survive alone and escape, or share the path with another. But reduce his odds of success. He chooses to help Jera, despite knowing it may cost him everything. That's when the voice changes. Humanity demonstrates collaborative survival instinct under lethal stress. Marked viable, the others. Marked unfit. The structures collapse. The desert resets. When Mason awakens, the skies are clear. The air is breathable. A shuttle never seen before rests nearby, powered, open. Waiting. JAHRA sits beside him, alive, only to remain. They board the shuttle as the desert watches silently. You passed? Passed what? Mason asks. Selection, the voice replies. As they launch into orbit, planet shuts down again, its surface smoothing, as if nothing ever happened. And behind them, a second desert world begins to light up. Another test, another crew, another trial.